Okay, so now we're going to jump ahead a few chapters, chapter 7. I'm covering mainly the main standards at this point. And so there's a number of standards that's not considered essential standards that we cover throughout the course of the year. We're covering the main standards right now. So we're going to move on into standard number 3, compare the developments of early world religions, philosophies, and their key tenets. Now, we're going to discuss the early history and the role of Judaism, analyze the beliefs of the Jewish people, and examine the role the Jews have played in history. Now, this standard is for all early world religions. And really, the standard encompasses everything from Judaism, Christianity, Islam, the Roman gods, the Greek gods, Confucianism, Taoism, all these different things. We're going to cover those religions in other videos. So because of that, we're just going to focus on Judaism in this video right here. So the beginnings in Canaan and Egypt. Abraham is a Hebrew that was seen as the father of Judaism. Now what happens is Abraham is he lives in the area of Mesopotamia. Now, we cover that in our classes. We haven't covered that on the videos, but we do cover that in classes. And Abraham said that God told him that to leave his home of Mesopotamia, and he was giving him a promised land. The Israelites moved to Egypt during a period of famine, which would lead to captivity in Egypt when Pharaoh feared they were getting numerous and powerful. So these are we're just kind of covering a number of different things right here. First, Abraham, which is considered as the father of Judaism, also a key figure in Islam and Christianity, stated that God told him to pack up his things and move his family, and he would give him a land of promise. God also promised him that his descendants would be more numerous than the grain of sand on the seashore or the stars in the sky. He would have the son Isaac, who would have his son Jacob, which would be renamed Israel, which would have the son Joseph. Now, during this period of time, Joseph gets sold into Egyptian slavery. While he's there, he befriends Pharaoh. And there's a lot of it that I don't have time to cover in this video. But he befriends Pharaoh. He winds up helping save the region because of a drought and a famine. And ultimately, his brothers and his brothers sold him into slavery. His father didn't know what happened. He thought he had died. Come to Egypt. He brings them to Egypt so that they can live there with him. Now, the book of Exodus starts off with the phrase, "Then a Pharaoh rose to power that did not know Joseph." Meaning that someone came to power and he was like, dude, I don't know who this Joseph guy is. So because of that, he said, you know what, these Hebrew people are becoming too powerful, they're becoming too numerous, and so this is the reasoning behind the slavery in Egypt. And a lot of the history of the Jewish people is religious text-based because this is a lot of the history we have of the Jewish people that are recorded in the religious text. We're going to talk about the Tanakh, which is the Jewish Bible, and it tells the history of the Jewish people. Also, you have people like Josephus that tells a lot of the history of it, but it's still a lot of the same stories. Moses was the Hebrew leader that freed the people from Egypt in the Exodus, which is the journey where the Israelites left Egypt. This is a major part of Jewish history, but also inspirational for people under bondage, such as slaves in the American Civil War. This has always been an example. They would look and say, well, let's look at Moses. God called Moses to set the people free, and so because of this, people aren't supposed to be in bondage. And so this has been an inspirational call to all of them as well throughout history. According to the Hebrew Bible, the Israelites reached the land of Canaan. Once there, they had to fight the inhabitants of the land to take it. The 12 Israelite tribes lived in small scattered communities with no central government. Instead, judges would keep justice in the land and settle disputes. So this is the time of the judges, which is where they would kind of oversee things. They didn't have a king at this point. They were judges, and there were 12 tribes of Israel. The new threat to the Jews was the Philistines, who lived along the Mediterranean coast. The Israelites were scared of the Philistines and banded together and said they needed a new king. So what happens here is that they go to the prophet Samuel, which is the prophet over the region at the time. And they say, we need a king. And Samuel says, you don't need a king. You need to be following God and His commands. He says, no, we want a king like everybody else. So he appoints Saul to be the first king of Israel. God gives him that decree that Saul will be the first king of Israel. Now, when Saul died, David became king. Now, there's a lot in the middle of it. Like I said, I can't cover all this in a 10, 12-minute video. So basically what happens is that David, most people have heard the story of David and Goliath, but David winds up getting put in the court of King Saul. King Saul is burdened by something that keeps him up and torments him. David plays his instrument and it calms him down. David also fights in the military and becomes renowned for being a very great military leader. It's recorded that they would say Saul has killed his thousands and David his tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands, and so there's a difference there, and Saul starts recognizing this. He realizes, and also Saul is told by Samuel, you're going to lose your kingdom because of your disobedience to God. And so Samuel told him that, so Saul was aware of that. So he's always afraid David's going to take his throne. It doesn't happen until Saul dies in battle. And then David becomes the king of Israel, David becomes the first powerful king of Israel. Now, there's so much more you put about David. That's just kind of the definition I give for the exam. He's the first powerful king of Israel. He grew up a shepherd, but according to the Jewish Bible, he defeated Goliath, the Philistine giant. Through his military victories, he won the support of the kingdom. So this is about King David. Solomon is the king of Israel who served after David. He is David's son with Bathsheba. After David and Bathsheba have their affair and their first child passes away, Solomon is born and becomes the heir to the throne. Solomon extended the kingdom of Israel and made allies with Egypt and Phoenicia. He also built a temple to God in Jerusalem, and it was one of the most expensive temples ever to be built. This is the temple of God. Solomon's temple is what it was known as. Now, their Jewish belief in text. Religion is what the entire foundation of the Jews based society on. The Jews believed in one God. They were monotheistic, and his Hebrew name was Yahweh, which translates to Yahweh or Lord. And so they, of course, were monotheistic, and that is a belief in only one God. Polytheism is belief in many gods. Monotheism is belief in one. The Torah is the first of three parts of a group of writings of the Hebrew Bible, which makes up the Tanakh. The second is the Nevi'im, which contains the books of the prophets. And if I mispronounce these, forgive me. Prophets are people who are said to receive messages from God and be taught to others. The final part of the Hebrew Bible is the Ketuvim, which contains 11 books of poetry, songs, stories, lessons, and history, such as the book of Daniel. Just a few of the traditions and holy days of the Jewish people. Hanukkah is a celebration that is held in December. It is celebrated as a remembrance about the rededication of the temple during the revolt of the Maccabees, and is celebrated by lighting a menorah, which are candles in a special candle holder. According to legend, they didn't have enough oil to perform the ceremony, but miraculously oil burned for 8 full days. And this is when they celebrate the Festival of Lights, or Hanukkah. Of course, this is a menorah right here, as we saw a few minutes ago on the notes. This is a menorah. Passover, which has just happened recently, is a time for the Jews to remember the Exodus. According to Jewish tradition, the Israelites left so quickly they didn't have time to let their bread rise, so part of the celebration is to eat unleavened bread. They celebrate Passover with a ritual meal called a Seder, and during the Seder, the participants recall and reflect upon the Exodus. So the idea behind the Passover is when they went to leave Egypt, Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. And Moses said, let my people go. Pharaoh said no. So God sent a series of plagues, the last one being the death of the firstborn child, or firstborn son. To protect the Jewish people, he told them, I want you to take lamb's blood and paint it over your doorframe so that whenever we're passing over this, your people will be saved. And so that's what they did. That's why it's known as the Passover. They celebrate this along with the Exodus from Egypt during the time of Passover. High holy days are the two most sacred of the Jewish holy days. The first is Rosh Hashanah, which celebrates the new year of the Jewish calendar and is celebrated in September or October. Yom Kippur is the time that Jews ask God to forgive their sins, and Jews don't drink or eat anything the entire day. These are two high holy days of the Jewish faith. So that just kind of wraps up about the Jewish people a little bit. Of course, in modern day, the Jews have been persecuted throughout history. There's a lot of groups of people who believe the Jewish people shouldn't exist, and it's interesting considering the main reason behind it is because of their location. They're in Jerusalem, their claim to the city of Jerusalem, and all these different areas and all that kind of stuff. But of course, the most recent major persecution of Jewish people was the Holocaust that took place with Adolf Hitler in World War II, where over 6 million Jews were killed by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis. So, of course, there is a lot of history of the Jewish people where I couldn't cover a millionth of what should be covered, but just a little bit about it to show you a little bit about the early history of the Jewish people and some of the early religious beliefs that took place in antiquity. So, that being said, stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you soon.